Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests. It is an honor to make a keynote speech at this event and in respect of the 30th anniversary of the Maastricht Treaty. I would like to present you some aspects of European energy policy developments, also related to the Maastricht Treaty and to the energy crisis. I would like to start by quoting Miguel Arias Cañete, former Commissioner for Climate Action and Energy in the EU, who said once that the most basic responsibility of any political system, indeed of any politician, is to fight to ensure that the world we leave behind for the next generation is better than the one we inherited. This is by no means any new concept, but it became an important concept applying in the energy sector as well. The European community has been engaged with this concept since the Treaty of Maastricht. In the past 30 years, a lot was achieved. A great level of market integration and significant efforts against climate change. On the other hand, it seems that we are still facing challenges to meet the most basic contract between generations to live in peace and prosperity. I mean, we in Europe again face high energy prices, risk of supply security, competitiveness challenge on the global scale, and new types of dependencies are emerging, such as the availability of critical raw materials. Therefore, I can say that our mission is not yet completed, but the efforts that has been done and the results that has been achieved so far should be respected and remembered. And of course, the story has started much earlier than the Maastricht Treaty was signed. We, the people in the energy sector, like to refer our sector as the basis of the European integration. The earliest founding treaties such as the European Coal and Steel Community or the Euratom Treaty were among the very first primary level legal documents of European approach, and these contained, well before the Maastricht Treaty, certain aspects and goals of European economic integration. It is also an interesting fact that the underlying goals that were set at the very beginning remained constant and valid over many decades, such as energy security, sustainability, and competitiveness. The Maastricht Treaty itself has opened the door for treating energy and energy supply as part of the European common market and the approach to regulate energy as more of a product rather than a national public service. As you can see on the slide, the European energy policy has been developing since the very beginning and went through many steps and stages that I would like to shortly touch upon. I already mentioned the founding treaties and the Maastricht Treaty. The European project of creating a functional internal market for energy came alive from the positive experience and benefits occurred in other sectors, such as better products, lower prices, more innovation, and efficient use of scarce resources. However, the specific characteristics of the energy market had to be taken into account. Firstly, the reliance of our society on the uninterrupted supply of energy for heating, cooking, transport, buildings, and manufacturing is unlike for any other good. The resulting strategic importance of energy security and the potentially disastrous consequences of supply disruption made member states to keep energy markets largely under state control. From this policy point of view, national energy markets were highly isolated, similar to other network industries such as transport and telecommunications at the beginning. Secondly, the supply of energy requires specialized infrastructure for the transport of production fields or facilities to final consumers. The cost of building such infrastructure is so high that it was and it is not economically viable to build parallel competing networks at large scale. Transmission of energy therefore constituted a natural monopoly that granted its owner main influence over energy supply. And in order to ensure secure energy supply, governments intervened by way of regulation, subsidies, and of granting exclusive rights. As a result, markets were dominated by state-owned monopolistic, vertically integrated companies that were bound by long-term contracts with typically external energy producers. Any attempts to liberalize energy markets were challenged on three fronts: the isolated nature of national markets, the obstacle of natural monopoly of transmission infrastructure, and the risk of endangering security of supply by market intervention. The first EU-level initiative to liberalize energy markets in Europe through targeted regulation can be traced back to 1985, when the communication of the Commission was published on new community energy objectives, and this document proposed for the first time to achieve the objective of an integrated energy market. The Commission noted that for both electricity and gas, the greater integration of the systems and increased trade would benefit of all. Greater competition would improve efficiency and would reduce overall costs. In addition, a larger degree of interconnection would enhance security by also making it possible to share supplies in emergency situations. In 1988, empowered by the adoption of the Single European Act, the European Commission, in the so-called Internal Energy Market Communication, set the main areas of work, such as more cross-border interconnections, harmonization of tariffs, and the need for third-party access to the networks. As a result of the work, in 1992 and 1994, the Commission put forward the so-called First Energy Package for electricity and gas, which was adopted by the member states after 4 years of intense negotiations. The Commission at that time chose Article 95 of the treaty, this is Article 114 today, dealing with internal market harmonization as legal basis of the package, to reinforce that the supply of energy is a product that should benefit from the free movement of goods. This approach was also confirmed by the Court of Justice at that time. The approach of the first package was a gradual market opening. It didn't break the traditional perception of energy supply as an essential facility, but the first time it required member states to have regulated public service obligations, clearly defined and non-discriminatory, and also notified to the Commission. On the other hand, the directives allowed for a range of derogations from mandatory market opening rules, both for suppliers and for member states with isolated or emerging markets. Also coming from the nature of the legislative acts as directives, the discretion to decide on the national legal framework was left to the member states. The resulting degree of liberalization was unsatisfactory after a few years. In 2001, when the Commission identified that high concentration of suppliers in the energy production market, and non-transparent network tariffs, also low level of unbundling of activities, remained obstacles to achieve an internal energy market. So the European Commission, at this stage, in 2001, proposed the so-called second energy package for electricity and gas. The main reference to the new package was that where market opening was successful in certain member states, the energy prices decreased significantly, especially in the electricity sector. And this actually was a very good justification for a new package. The new package introduced as a novelty the directly applicable legal act, the regulation, on conditions to access to network for cross-border exchanges. And here, for the first time, member states' discretion was reduced to the wording of the legal act itself. The second package also introduced the right of consumers to freely choose their supplier and the establishment of independent national regulators with competencies on market monitoring and control. Even though the second package addressed many of the shortcomings of the first package, member states were slow to implement, and the Commission started a series of infringement procedures against them. Market opening, however, was successful in some of the member states, such as the United Kingdom, Finland, Denmark, and Sweden. But in the majority of the member states, wholesale markets remained highly concentrated, demonstrated by the absence of price convergence and low level of cross-border trade. In the meantime, between 2007 and 2009, about 15 years after the Maastricht Treaty introduced the common market approach to the economy, a major change happened on the primary law level. The adoption and entry into force of the Lisbon Treaty has declared energy as a shared competence policy area between the EU and its member states, which entirely changed the regulatory approach towards energy. From this on, member states were able to regulate only if the EU did not wish to regulate in a certain area. Also, a new dedicated article to energy was introduced in the treaty, Article 194, which became the general legal basis for energy-related EU legislation. Under this article, the main EU energy policy areas were defined, such as to ensure the functioning of the energy market, to guarantee the security of energy supply, promoting energy efficiency and energy saving, development of new renewable energy sources, and the promotion of interconnection of energy network. Despite the shift in national and EU level powers, the member states decided to keep an important issue for themselves, and it is the free choice of their energy mix. This became an extremely important guarantee that member states actually used effectively to protect their interests with regard to different energy sources, such as coal, gas, or nuclear energy. And the triangle of the three equally important objectives, security, sustainability, and competitiveness, was again in the mid-2000s reinforced by the adoption of the policy document called an Energy Policy for Europe in 2007, which reinforced new aspects of sustainability by including fight against climate change and the related 2020-20 targets. The policy paper endorsed by the heads and states of governments was followed by a series of major new legislative initiatives, including the Renewable Directive, Energy Efficiency Directive, and again a new third energy package in 2009. The basic three challenges that dominated the ideal landscape over the next decade were the need to present a robust commitment to the Kyoto climate change process, the need to address Russia's dominant position in a number of EU member states, and the need to ensure that EU electricity and gas prices are as competitive as possible through the completion of the international gas and electricity markets. The package continued to enforce the three basic tools of liberalization: non-discriminatory market access, unbundling of activities, and transparent tarification. The main novelties of the package were the introduction of ownership unbundling for activities for transmission system operators, but here the member states again has reserved the right to keep alternative models for vertically integrated companies. The independence and competencies of national regulators were strengthened. Regulators became independent not only from companies, but also from governments. The first EU-level energy agency was also established with the aim to fill the gap in cross-border decisions of national regulators. The package created EU-level coordination of transmission system operators as well as for gas and electricity, and also a series of binding regulations for cross-border network management, the so-called network codes. In the year of the adoption of the package, a very serious gas supply disruption also hit Europe. The Russian gas supply was stopped toward Ukraine and Europe, which had severe effects on European gas supply, and also initiated a series of emergency measures that was adopted on European level. By 2017, the legal framework for the functional single energy market was nearly completed, which means that it took more than 20 years for Europe from the Maastricht Treaty to reach this stage of integration. But it also took a decade to adopt all pieces of this package. But there was no stop here at all. In 2015, the European Commission presented the Energy Union strategy on the basis of the political will of the heads of states and governments with 5 pillars and reinforced challenges and with the aim to transform the energy system in line with decarbonization needs. This was the time when the rise of renewable energy sources happened. The first deployment of large-scale renewable energy source deployment happened in the electricity generation, and the Commission has come up with the new electricity market design, which was soon accompanied with new legislative proposal, the Clean Energy for All Europeans, presented in November 2016. At this stage, the evolution of electricity and gas internal markets were separated. The focus became largely on the electricity market and the integration of renewable energy sources, increase of energy efficiency, and meeting climate goals. For this, a major shift was necessary on market design from a centralized traditional structure of market and system. We had to move towards a decentralized self-production and self-consuming approach while keeping also the achievements of market integration. It was also the first package for which the legal basis was provided by the Lisbon Treaty under Article 194. The package was adopted in 2019 and the implementation is still ongoing. Some innovations of the package are local energy communities and renewable energy communities, producer-consumer, the so-called prosumer approach, aggregation service and independent aggregator, demand-side responses, and integrated energy and climate policy planning. Of course, the gas market was also affected by the deployment of renewables and decarbonization goals. The Commission presented the decarbonization and hydrogen package for the gas market in 2021. The package includes the revision of gas directive and regulation, a new legislative act on methane reduction in the energy sector, and the revision of the buildings directive. The negotiations on this new package are still ongoing, but already reached the phase of the trialogues between the institutions, and the intention of the ongoing and upcoming presidencies is to close these files by the end of 2023. So this is where we are standing today with regard to energy policy development. If I would want to conclude this keynote speech, I would say that energy crises have marked some of the major steps of EU energy market development, causing different supply shocks, but also pushing forward the level of integration, the level of sustainability, the level of competitiveness, and sometimes the level of centralizing EU powers over national competencies. The Maastricht Treaty has been an important catalyst to this process. Energy crises are also good reminders for our society to face vulnerabilities, strengthen the resilience of energy supply chains and systems, also by maintaining dialogue and show solidarity to those in need. The achievements of the last decades should be respected, and the words of the former commissioner should not be forgotten about leaving a better world based on an energy system that is secure, reliable, affordable, and sustainable is and should be our main responsibility. With this, I would like to thank you for your attention.